for Thursday, November 17th, 2022. It's the Schatz and Tanier Show. I am Aaron Schatz, the editor-in-chief of Football Outsiders, joined as always by Mike Tanier, our senior staff writer. He's got the Bell's seasoning. Okay, there's a reference there that I'm not getting.
Thanksgiving is coming. There's no show next week, so I got my Bell's poultry seasoning ready. My turkey is purchased. It is in the refrigerator.
We have 2 turkeys this year.
Oh no!
My girlfriend wanted to have one turkey cooked ahead of time and another one to bring out and actually carve. Like one will already be carved and the other one will be like ceremonially carved.
That is really extreme.
We are going to be eating so much turkey for like a month and a half. It's going to be ridiculous.
How many people do you have?
Like 15.
We should live stream, instead of having the show, we should live stream the carving of this turkey if 2 turkeys are involved in it. This is like some Food Network level thing here.
When my girlfriend wants to entertain, she really wants to like do it up.
Okay. Do you have to carve this turkey?
No, I think she's doing it.
Okay.
I don't think I'm the man with the knife.
Okay, so it's not, and it's not going to be some sort of like Benihana level thing where the
no, we're not going to be throwing the utensils in the air and all that. No, I don't think so.
Okay. So 2 turkeys.
2 turkeys.
Well, you know what? I'll give you some of this because you need it more than me, my friend. Here you go.
Bell seasoning. So let's talk about week 11 and then week 12. There won't be a show next Thursday because of Thanksgiving, but we can talk about week 11. And let's start off with the most important game for playoff odds by far, which is Jets at Patriots. Jets make the playoffs in 90% of sims where they win and 60% where they lose. Patriots make it in 60% if they win, 26% if they lose, which makes sense because the Jets are 1 game ahead of the Patriots.
Right.
If the Patriots beat the Jets, they'll have the same record and basically the same odds of making the playoffs. In the AFC, which is right now is sort of 9 teams for 7 spots.
Right. They'd have the sweep tiebreaker too. If the
Patriots win this game, they will have the tiebreaker over the Jets because they will have swept them. Yeah.
Right.
And this one is, I realized that the Patriots beat the Jets 3 weeks ago, but I still feel like the line in this game is a little off. It's 3.5 points for the Patriots. And I feel there's just this sort of general Belichick can beat the Jets feeling, but this year's Jets are not the Jets of the past.
And yet they were the Jets of the past 3 weeks ago when Belichick made Zach Wilson look foolish.
Yeah, well, their defense wasn't. Their defense still looked good against the Patriots 3 weeks ago. The Patriots won that game. They allowed 355 yards in that game. They won it with interceptions, special teams, and the penalty that canceled a pick 6.
But that's kind of how the Patriots win, and that's how they beat the Jets, and other teams like that this year. I mean, the penalty is one thing, but yeah, it's special teams and defense and turnovers because Wilson looks bad, but Mac Jones looked very bad in that game as well.
Yeah. So here is some fun stats. I looked up ESPN QBR.
Okay.
QBR when not pressured.
Okay.
Zach Wilson, 83.5, which is 3rd in the league. Behind Tua and Mahomes. Mac Jones, 63.9, which is 15th.
Okay.
QBR when pressured. Oh my God, our guest is here.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, a little bit better late than never. Hi, Arif. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry, my previous podcast went, like the internet just cut out for like 20 minutes in the middle of it, so we went a little bit long.
Oh my God.
It's good to see. I was ripping you, man. I was so mad.
I bet. Yeah,
so
I deserve it.
You know how I get.
Yeah.
All right.
How many turkeys are you going to have at your Thanksgiving?
Oh, 0. Of course, 0. Absolutely none.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I have an extra turkey for you if you'd like it.
No. I insist. You keep it.
So Arif Hasan from Pro Football Network is our guest, who we thought had technical issues or whatever and was not joining us. So we'll finish talking Jets and Patriots, and then we'll get to the reason we had Arif on, which was to talk about the 8-1 Vikings. But just to finish what I was saying about the Jets and Patriots, here's ESPN's QBR when the quarterbacks are pressured. Mac Jones, 2.
Really?
That's out of 100. 2 out of 100.
Second.
That ranks next to last in the league.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant second overall. I'm like, how?
No, I mean 2, like the rating is 2.
Okay.
Who's last in the league? Zach Wilson, 1. That's a 1 out of 100 when pressured. Zach Wilson, 1 out of 100 when pressured. And who has the highest pressure rate in the league, according to Pro Football Reference? The Patriots. And who has the 4th highest pressure rate? The Jets. So both of these guys are going to be running for their lives and doing dumb things for 60 minutes.
And they do very, very dumb things. In fact, I'm checking the over-under. It's down at 38.
Yeah.
But that seems to be points off turnovers territory. I probably would still lean towards the under there, but it is going to be an ugly game. It was an ugly game last time.
Yeah. And, Mac Jones had 6 sacks in that game.
Yeah.
The Patriots are currently 2nd against the pass, but 21st against the run. But the Jets' running game isn't as good since Breece Hall got hurt.
Right.
The Jets have a weakness against passes in the middle of the field, but Mac Jones has terrible numbers passing to the middle of the field this year. So it just feels like a real defense.
Some of the tape guys were really looking at sort of the design of the plays for the Patriots. And, we've talked about the Matt Patricia factor and the Joe Judge factor, but like play action passes where nobody's actually trying to fake the run. And other like basic mistakes like this, plays on like 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, where nobody's looking for the ball like 5 or 6 yards.
Orlovsky had a video yesterday where he was like, watch Mac Jones take his drop, bang, bang, bang. He's ready to get the ball out. Nobody has turned around.
Right. And I think mistakes like that are going to persist throughout the year for the New England Patriots. And then the flip side of that is the Jets is if Zach Wilson, if it's not completely schemed and structured up for him, anything can happen.
Yeah. Do you have a thought about this one?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so for me, it's I don't have a lot of trust in Mac Jones. I think that you kind of went over that a little bit. For me, I do want to take the under here, right? Because the Jets have been so reliant on a running game that is neither sustainable nor has Breece Hall, right?
Right.
I love James Robinson, but this is just not that. So for me, I wanted to take the under because I really do like the Patriots defense a lot. I think that not a lot of people talk about it very often. And so, what does it mean for the AFC East race? It's very bizarre to me, kind of the way that the AFC East has played out. I don't think a lot of people anticipated a lot of this. But ultimately, the Jets to me with Wilson are just or Flacco, right, are not a particularly reliable team. And I just think that the way that you generate these wins, given like, they've got a great depth of pass rush and stuff like that. Like I understand where they're coming from. The way they generate these wins is just, it's entertaining football, but it is not, something that makes me feel confident that they'll be able to do a lot.
Right. Which is the same way I feel about the Patriots, honestly. I mean, I do think it's a feather in Belichick's cap that they lost the guy who looked like he was their best defensive player, J.C. Jackson. J.C. Jackson goes to another team and plays like garbage.
Yeah.
And the Patriots defense loses nothing.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, and Belichick has done this consistently all the way back to like Richard Seymour, right?
Yeah.
All the way back, right? He'll lose like Chandler Jones and the defense somehow gets better, right? He'll lose Brandon Merriweather and the defense gets Asante Samuel and the defense gets better, right? It is wild how often they can shed a high level defensive player and come out on top. Malcolm Butler, another good example.
Yeah. So offensively, this is just, again, 2 quarterbacks who are going to be pressured and play badly. And that's one of the reasons why I would definitely take the Jets plus 3.5 is because I feel like there is anything could happen with the turnovers sort of feeling about this. You take the underdog when anything can happen with the turnover.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
In this case, I take the team that has a history of mucking out and slopping out these wins over the last couple of years, especially, and that's the Patriots. So I would go that way. If I really felt the Jets, I would almost like tease down and get like 6-7 points because it's like it'll be a chaos game and they'll run away with it. But, but like if it's down the middle, I think I'm going to take the Patriots until the Jets show they can win a game like this, and the Patriots show that they lose games like this.
Right. Again, win a game like this against the Patriots in particular, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it's like 2011 or something crazy like that.
Oh God, there had to be like a win or two on like week 17 in there, but I didn't go back.
No, I think the Patriots haven't lost to the Jets for something like 6 years.
Okay, for heaven's sake. You guys talk Vikings. I'm going to look that up.
Okay. So We'll skip ahead to 4 p.m. and talk about Dallas at Minnesota, because we wanted a refund, because even though he does cover the whole league for Pro Football Network, he kind of came up as a Vikings guy, covering the Vikings, writing about the Vikings. And we've got to talk about what's up with the Vikings, which is the team that our numbers despise, right? They are the worst 8-1 team in DVOA history, and have somehow won 7 straight one-possession games and win them all in really weird ways. Like, they seem to like take a lead, lose the lead, and then come back at the end and take the lead again in like every game. So it's, what are we missing? And I know the first thing we're missing is penalties, because the Vikings have a really good penalty differential. They're very low in penalties and very high in how many penalties have been called on their opponents. And that may be the reason for the difference between us and some of the other advanced metrics out there that have them like 13th. But then it's a question of like, what are we missing after? Like, what is going right other than Justin Jefferson? How are the Vikings doing this?
I mean, there are so many things at play. One thing that I think is potentially, on the realm of sustainable, that might explain how this consistently happens. They've got really good special teams, but on those special teams, a lot of things that are happening that you can't trust going forward. They had 3 turnovers in the fourth quarter on special teams. You can't, like, sure, okay, yeah, they've got the best field position coming out of kickoffs in the NFL. They've got the best kickoff field position differential in the NFL, right? That to me is something that you can coach and
our numbers actually don't like their special teams.
Well, that's probably because of Greg Joseph, right? I would imagine that's because of...
Yes, Joseph has not been good this year. And also because if they've recovered fumbles, like, we're counting all fumbles the same. So if they've got really good fumble recovery record on special teams, like, we're still, like, when Rieger fumbles, even when Rieger recovers it, we're still penalizing them for that. And if the other team fumbles, like, if they recover it, we're still...
You're not giving them the full kind of credit. Yeah.
Right.
And that makes sense. And the Vikings are like, what, 3rd in special teams EPA, which would right, because EPA just counts the result, right? And so
it doesn't care
so
whether
when Rieger picks up a fumble, that doesn't move the needle in EPA. When the Vikings recover a fumble, obviously that's a massive swing in EPA, right? So I would say that in terms of stuff like how good the kind of the field position units are, right, to kind of segregate out the field goal stuff, they've been doing a pretty good job. But that is fine. But then you add on top of a blocked kick that turns into a possession, or a forced fumble, or a muffed punt, which are 2 different things, right? Those things have helped the Vikings out, especially in the fourth quarter when people are paying a little bit more attention to them, that have allowed them to come back. In the Bills game, right, which is one of the craziest games I think any of us have ever seen, right? The Bills should have won the game, and I don't mean that just because they like played better. I mean, they had the ball with the lead in the fourth quarter with 44 seconds left. Right? Like, they should have won the game. And just the flukiest fumbled snap. And I know that Allen has had some kind of mistakes in the fourth quarter, but like the flukiest fumble snap at the goal line than you could possibly imagine.
Defense has no role in. Defense has no role in causing a fumbled snap.
Right, exactly, right? And okay, the Vikings, so that's either a safety or a touchdown. The Vikings recover it, and it becomes a touchdown. If it's a safety, the Vikings still need to drive down the field for a field goal with 44 seconds. Well, probably a little bit less at that point, right? With like 40 seconds left, right? Which, the Vikings have been doing pretty well in final drives, but that is not something that you can say is a certainty or even a probability. So I enjoy watching this Vikings team. I think that very few people who don't hate the Vikings would disagree. This is a very fun team to watch, and the way that they've been pulling out wins has been very magical. But in terms of trying to project how the Vikings are moving forward, there's a lot of things, I don't necessarily trust. I don't think Kirk Cousins is playing as well as he has in past years. It's just we're giving him a lot of passes because of the win column, right? It's kind of, it's frustrating to talk about because I know Kirk Cousins can play better, especially in the second and third quarter. I know that he does a better job of getting the ball out into accurate places that, produce yards after the catch to avoid contested catches. Another good example from the Bills game. There were 9 contested catch opportunities for Justin Jefferson. He came down with 7 of them. That is fantastic. I love seeing it. That's great football. One of the best catches we've ever seen. another catch that we're never going to remember that, was phenomenal near the end zone.
Yeah.
He had a great game, and a lot of those catches did not need to be contested. Cousins threw them in bad locations, and Justin
Mhm.
Jefferson saved them. That makes for great viewing, absolutely phenomenal viewing. It also makes you wonder, what is the quarterback doing here? And again, tough conversation, right? Because the Minneapolis Miracle, Case Keenum, that's a bad throw. It was a
Mhm.
bad throw. And it looks great because of what Stephon Diggs is able to do with it. Same thing here with Justin Jefferson, right? So it is very difficult for me to say that this team is going to continue to do this stuff going forward. But I said this 4 wins ago, and now I'm getting hammered for saying this after,
Right.
right?
And here's what's a little wild is if we think about what we knew about the Vikings going into the season, I feel like they actually should be a little better than this. Like their advanced numbers, as we projected that they would be a better team than this when it came to their actual underlying numbers. Because, like you said, Cousins is not playing as well as he has in the past. So, like, I could totally see a situation where the Vikings are actually a little bit better the rest of the year. And then people are going to be like, see, we told you the Vikings were really good. And it's like, no, but they're actually just playing better than they were before. So they deserve
It's
these
very
wins more than they did
frustrating.
early on. It's really weird. And in the way that this year has been with so many close games, it's almost like makes total sense that there would be a team like this.
Oh, yeah,
Like it's
100%.
almost ridiculous that there isn't a team that's the opposite. Like there should also be a team that's 2-7 with tons of close losses because this game because there's so much parity this year and so many close games that why wouldn't there be an average team that's 8-1 and one that's 1-8? But there's two of the former, the
Right.
Vikings and the Giants, and there really
Right.
aren't any of the latter.
Yeah, it is a very kind of bizarre, uh, kind of setup, right? It's just so it's so weird because like a lot of average teams are doing really well,
Mhm.
and then there are a bunch of mediocre teams that are just they're doing their record is worse than who they are as a football team. There's a bunch of those teams, and that's kind of where this is playing out, which is very annoying because it's so easy when you explain this to point to a counterpart to say, hey, here's the kind of mirror version of this.
Right.
And without that explanation, it becomes very difficult to just be like, well, the Titans are punching a little bit above their weight, and that counts as one thing, and the Jets are punching, wherever they're punching, but maybe a little
The
bit,
Jaguars' numbers are a little bit
Exactly.
better than their
right,
record. But the
exactly,
Jaguars are not anywhere near to the extent that the Vikings are. They're not the
right, yeah, yeah, yeah.
anti-Vikings anywhere
Yeah,
near the
and
extent.
so it does become like a very like the Raiders are maybe a decent. They're not a good team. They're a bad team, but they're probably better than a 2-win team. And that's
Yeah.
like what you have to point to, right? Like
Right.
that's and so it is a difficult discussion. But it's kind of what makes the sport what it is, right? Like it's not like you have 160 games and you play it out, right? Or it's not like you've got a series in the playoffs, right? So it's just going to have to live in these very kind of especially for the analytically minded, uncomfortable zones where you've got
Yeah.
these kind of splash moments.
Right.
And
And you're a playoff team. You're a playoff team at this point.
Yeah.
Like the Vikings are a playoff team, so they're this, they're that. It doesn't really play out until January.
Wait, and that's what makes this like such an annoying conversation to have because I'm not saying fans shouldn't be happy. They
Right.
should be overjoyed. Like, of course they should be happy.
Mhm.
This is fantastic. Not only are the Vikings playing fun football, they're winning. That's the point. Go have fun. They're a playoff team. They're in contention for the number one seed against all odds. That's super cool, right?
right.
But if you're asking me how they're going to do going forward, that's a different conversation and a different question than should I be happy with this team? Yeah, you should be happy with the team. But like, are we going to project them to do well going forward? I don't know.
Although the thing is, there's so much parity this year. If
Right. That's
ever
another
there
thing
was a year where the 17th best team was going to win the Super Bowl, this is it.
Right. Right.
Right? Like, I mean, it's not ridiculous. Like the idea that the Vikings go, I don't, so they're 8-1 now, which means they have 4 games left. So let's say they go 4-4 the rest of the way. So they finish 12-5, and then they go on a run in the playoffs. Is that out
Right.
of the realm of possibility? Not at all.
Right.
Like they should
Especially
go like 4-4 the rest of the way. And if they're 12-5, they're going to have a home game to start with. And
There's been teams like the Giants in the playoffs. Teams like the Seahawks will probably be ready to fade as well in the playoffs.
right.
They get wins against them. they go up against the Eagles, and the Eagles decide they don't want to defend the run anymore, and they pound them with Dalvin Cook. That could be that's your
Right.
Yeah, it's not ridiculous at all.
Yeah,
Right.
there's one definitively better team than them that they might face in the playoffs, and you know, the Vikings have already demonstrated the ability to beat a team that is definitively better than them.
Right.
And you know, just another fluke game like that happens. If you only need one fluke game in the playoffs to make it into the Super Bowl, you're in a really good spot, just in terms of what your playoff schedule looks like.
Well, that makes this week really interesting because as far as our numbers go, Dallas is definitely clearly better than Minnesota. But as far as wins and losses go, they're not. I mean, right? They're 6-3 as opposed to 8-1. So here they are now going into Minnesota. Minnesota has the home field advantage in this game. There's sort of questions a little bit, you know, there's always questions about Dallas. I think everybody feels like they're sort of morally weak,
Yes. Yeah, no, that's true.
right?
Yes, I-
Like, I mean, people feel like have this feeling that McCarthy and Prescott are going to blow it at the most inopportune times, and losing to Green Bay last week did not help that with that feeling.
Mhm.
Right.
But overall, this team has been really good this year, even when Cooper Rush was the quarterback, and they've been better since Prescott came back.
Yeah, and it's difficult because Prescott, I think in terms of a complete games, he's had like one good complete game this year, right?
Right.
But we know who he is as a quarterback historically. He's a very good quarterback.
Right.
And so am I going to hold the half game before he got injured against him where he was playing pretty poorly for about 2 quarters? Am I going to hold the first game back against the Lions against him? You know, am I going to hold the 2 quarters that he played poorly against Green Bay? And honestly, like outside of, and it sounds so dumb to say it like this, outside of the picks, right? You know, he was actually playing pretty well.
You know, I will point out you just sort of line item vetoed like 37% of his season at this
Yeah.
point. So
Right.
I mean,
I'm willing to write off week 1, but as far
Right.
as I'm concerned, everything since he came back counts.
I think
Sure.
I think if Prescott is
If we
sort of
count
a
every
high,
throw, yeah.
he's a
But
high
everything
volatility
since he came
quarterback.
back, they would be 10th on offense if
Mhm.
we only count the 3 games since he came back.
Yeah,
That's
which
a
makes
good
sense.
offense.
Yeah,
That's good.
and I
Good.
think that they'll be better going forward, given Dak Prescott's historical capabilities, right? So I do think that, you know, hey, they've got like a top 3. Well, I don't know what Football Outsider says about Dallas's defense, but to me, it's a top 3 defense, right? It has faded a little bit over the past, but you know, it's a
we
top
have them
3
as a
defense.
top 3 defense, and they're like the best pass rush in the league right now.
Right, exactly. Yeah. You know, what Micah Parsons and Dorrance Armstrong and, you know, DeMarcus Lawrence, who I don't know if he'll be ready for the game. Plus the rookie Sam Williams, what they've been able to do has been really phenomenal from a pass rush perspective. They were able to shore up just a tiny bit in run defense with Jonathan Hankins. That's still going to be a big issue for them no matter what. But that pass rush is really phenomenal. And you know, the Vikings have a really great pair of tackles. That arguably, you know, right now they're playing the best football for tackles in the NFL, but that interior is really worrisome, and Dallas is not shy about putting some players on the interior if they really
Also,
need to.
what is Darrisaw's current situation? Because he's concussion protocol, the
Yeah,
left
he's
tackle,
concussion
Christian
protocol.
Darrisaw.
Yeah. So I mean that is certainly a concern. I don't know where he is in the concussion protocol. The injury report's going to come out pretty soon. Blake Brandel, who played in his stead, played pretty well. Obviously, it's going to be an enormous downgrade if
I'll point out that I just wrote a thing for ESPN about the best second-year players, and by ESPN's blocking rates, Darrisaw is not having the greatest season, but Pro Football Focus has him as the #1 left tackle in the league. So he's a loss if he can't.
Eyeball wise, he is playing well.
Yeah.
So I would argue that potentially one difference between you know, tracking data in terms of pass block and run block win rate, which I think in pass block win rate he's still doing fine. I think it's kind of the run block win rate stuff that he's losing.
I may have that out of order. Yeah.
Yeah. But in either respect, I think that one of the reasons it looks a little bit different is because, and why PFF would have him so high, is because of the types of responsibilities that they're giving him. You take a look at the line splits, right? You've got 4 players that are like lined up in the traditional 6 inches from each other line splits. You got Darrisaw who's like a foot away. They're putting him on actual islands in like the most extreme capacities than you can imagine. They're not giving him. It's not just that they're not giving him like double team or chip help, which they're not. But they're having him play in a way that prevents outside rushes and puts a punch of pressure on him on inside rushes so that they can help out those guards and centers, right? And so it puts a lot of stress on what he does. And I think within the context of what he's being asked to do and how he plays, he's doing a really phenomenal job, which I think, PFF tends to account for context like that. And so, which is one reason that is he's number one in PFF right now, I think. One reason his grade is so high. So I think that's part of it, and it enables the offense to do a lot of things like put more receivers into timing-oriented passing routes without having to chip and stuff like that. It creates some kind of interesting routes up the middle because you've got that giant gap there. It allows the offense to do some things that they wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. Plus, in terms of like blitz pickup, that you just have, you one assignment. Dare say you got one guy, right? And then the blitz pickup, they slide the rest of it. So there are some opportunities there, right? That interior does worry me, and I think that Dallas is more than willing to say, "Hey, Sam Williams, kick inside." Right? You're doing a great job, 15 snaps
Or have
a game.
Micah line up as an inside linebacker and then rush from there.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so that's a problem, and I think that that's going to create a lot of opportunities for players like Trevon Diggs, who's playing less gambly, I think, as a corner, and I think it's working out for him, even if you're not getting kind of the highlight picks. And so long as the Vikings don't overexploit like the Anthony Brown Justin Jefferson matchup that they might be able to manufacture, it'll be hard to move the ball against Dallas. And so I think that that's going to be the key there, because if Dak Prescott gets in rhythm and the Vikings are basically just an average offense, then I think that, I mean, this is the reason the Cowboys are like favored. They're like, there's some crazy statistic about about a home team with this record being a home underdog for the first time in like since the 70s or something crazy like that. And this is why, right? Because people trust that Dak Prescott's at least a very good quarterback, right? And that Dallas defense is phenomenal. The Vikings defense is a sieve, except in certain key fourth quarter moments.
Well, here's a crazy one. The Vikings, by DVOA, have the worst red zone defense.
Yeah.
And yet, what was one of the highlights of that game last week? Red zone interception.
Red zone interceptions.
Well, because the Bills refuse to like hand off once in a while, occasionally.
Well, also Singletary was wide open on the right side. Like he could have thrown the ball away. He could have thrown the ball to Singletary. Like
right.
It was a baffling series of picks.
Bill Houston wants to know, Arif, if you can answer the eternal Vikings question: is Kirk Cousins good?
Go.
So normally I would answer this by saying that, from quarters 1 to 3, Kirk Cousins is a really great quarterback. I think if you gave every quarterback a good supporting cast and evaluated Kirk Cousins against that group, he would be probably a top 7, maybe even a top 5 quarterback on standard situations and standard downs. And his issue was that he does a very poor job improvising, and he does a very poor job with situational football, which to me normally is noise. For Kirk Cousins, it hasn't been, because he plays the same type of football in 2-minute situations as he does in, second quarter, first drive, the second quarter type situations, right? Yeah. Now Kirk Cousins is a little bit weird because he is not playing that situational football as well, or he's not playing the normal standard downs as well, but he has adapted in terms of situational football. He no longer throws it like with there's 40 seconds left and one timeout to the middle of the field when you're driving for a touchdown, right? Which has been one of the most infuriating things that he does, right? He no longer does that. He plays 2-minute football like you're supposed to play 2-minute football. He takes chances. These chances are working out. Typically the reason that you're high risk, high reward is because the downside to throwing a bad throw is a loss and you're already losing. So you might as well take the better throw, right? Which is how Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre and to some extent Tom Brady play those end of game situations, because they know those end of game picks are like the same as like a completion over the middle, right? But the end of game throw that you get to get that pick is generally worth it, which is why they have so many interceptions in those scenarios, but a better win rate. Now Cousins has been doing that more. He's been improvising a little bit more. He's done a better job extending the pocket and running the ball, of all things that he is just not good at. He is doing more often. And it's something I have, and a lot of people have just wanted from him, to stop being kind of a robot paint by numbers quarterback. And as he has done that, and as he has improved at that, he has gotten worse at all the other things that he is known for. And so it's very hard. It's always hard to answer this question. Now it's very hard to answer this question, because if he can combine these things, he's legitimately just a very good quarterback, right? If he can play standard football like he has for the past 3 years, and if he can play improvisational football like he has this season, he's just good, right? He is right. Exactly what you want out of a quarterback. But right now, I would argue you want him more than most of the starters in the league,
Yeah.
but that does not mean you want him in the playoffs. That's kind of my answer. Kirk Cousins is better than most starting quarterbacks, and that is not good enough.
A couple of weeks ago on 3rd and inches, I saw him complete a pass that did not net the first down yardage. And I think we reached absolute throw in front of the sticks, Kirk Cousins apotheosis. There was no place to go but a 1-inch pass on 3rd and 2 inches. And since then, I have seen him take a few more shots downfield.
Yeah.
That thing I always used to joke about, oh, it's 1st and 20 after a holding penalty. You might as well punt now. That has been like the Vikings tradition for many years.
Mhm.
Especially against the Bills the last couple of weeks. Like, no, it's they're going to try to get down the field and convert a first down in this drive, and they're getting a little more success at that.
I'll also point out, because we're talking about the Vikings in the fourth quarter and Cousins in the fourth quarter and the Vikings having leads early into them, the Dallas offense is 23rd on offense in the first half of games and 3rd in the second half. The Vikings are 7th in the first half and 28th in the second half.
If you eliminated the first drive, the Vikings would be dead last.
The Vikings' first drives are amazing.
They're incredible.
They're just clinic.
Yeah, their touchdown rate is not just the best in the league; it's the best the league has seen in like years.
Yeah,
on the first drive.
They're these
On the first drive.
beautifully balanced drives. They absolutely are. Where they seem to get everybody involved. And it's like, wow, this is a textbook. Then they disappear for like 45 minutes.
Yeah,
And then at the end, all of a sudden they're playing again, and then they come out and they win by 3 points.
Right.
Yeah, it's very exciting football to watch. But if you if you're trying to figure out if this team is good, it's very frustrating.
Useful Title thinks of Kirk Cousins as the NFC version of David Carr, and I'm assuming he means Derek Carr.
I assume, because Kirk Cousins is not shell shocked by bad pass
9,000 sacks.
Yeah. I get it. Derek Carr has a higher ceiling, and he is less likely to use it than Kirk Cousins. But in terms of playing well from down to down in standard play, and then kind of tightening up in critical moments, I get where this is coming from. But like Derek Carr's is I think substantially worse.
Yeah, and this year in particular. This year.
Yeah, well, this year in particular.
Derek Carr, who's like robotically running 3 different offenses, and none of them are good.
Yeah.
So the line is Cowboys by 1.5, and with an over/under of 47.5. What do you guys think?
I'll take those Cowboys, but now I'm seeing the first quarter spread, Vikings +1, and reminder about how good those drives are. The attempting first quarter play there to just take the Vikings, get that. The over/under is also 9, so if it's like, oh, you get a Vikings touchdown, then you get like any other points. But otherwise, for the game, I'm going to go with the Cowboys. Trust in that front four, trust in that offense, like you said, has gotten better and is getting better over the last couple games with a healthy Dak Prescott. Yeah,
to me, I would take the Cowboys here. Every CeeDee Lamb drop in that situation is going to cause me pain, but I'm going to take the Cowboys here. I think that the fundamentals of the Cowboys are stronger, which is why they're favored on the road anyway. But I think that here, Vegas knows that people want to bet, and so I think the line here is artificially. I shouldn't say artificially, but it's depressed over what the models would tell you.
Yeah.
The Cowboys would perform in this situation, so I would take the Cowboys here.
Yeah, I also believe in the Cowboys, although I'm just waiting for Mike McCarthy to make some kind of ridiculously dumb decision in the fourth quarter with the lead of 3, which will make me throw a brick through my television, and then
beautiful coaching.
I'm not worried about Jefferson versus Brown. I'm worried about Jefferson versus that poor lad who was covering Christian Watson, Bobby Blue Bland, or whoever that young man was.
Yeah.
That could be a nightmare. But otherwise, I'm comfortable that we're not going to see as much of him this week.
Yeah.
All right. Let's zip through a couple more of the big games, although that is the 2 biggest games this week, no question. The Cowboys-Vikings game and the Jets-Patriots game. Eagles at Colts. Eagles favored by 6.5 with this colossal gap in our DVOA ratings, where Philadelphia is 2nd and Indianapolis is 31st, except that the Eagles are currently 1st against the pass and 28th against the run, and even worse since Jordan Davis got hurt. Can the Colts, with their offensive line kind of sucking this year, actually run on the Eagles?
Yes, they can. And we have evidence of that the Texans could run on the Eagles. And it's very simple. And Washington to a degree, and Washington did not run the ball efficiently. They just created these situations where, hey, it's 3rd and 2. You cannot force Heineke to make turnovers and mistakes on 3rd and 2 because we can keep the whole playbook open. I'll just give you some of the numbers on the Eagles rushing defense. First down rushing defense, 24th in DVOA, averaging 4.7 yards per carry allowed. Second down, averaging 4.7 yards per carry allowed, 21st in DVOA. 3rd and 4th down, 5.2 yards allowed. So that's 28th in DVOA. Red zone rushing defense, allowing 3.5 yards per carry. That's a ton of yardage in the red zone, folks. That is 27th in DVOA. Stuff rate, how often do they stuff opposing running backs? Eagles only stuff opposing running backs 14% of the time. That's 28th in the NFL. What about short yardage success, power success at Football Outsiders? 86% of short yardage runs are converted to first downs against the Eagles. That's, I believe, dead last overall.
Yes.
That is a formula for letting weaker teams that can only do one thing, which is like just thump it off tackle, letting those teams stay in the game, and if you make a mistake, lose the game.
Yeah.
We're all forgetting that the Eagles just signed Linval Joseph. That's
it's not 2016 anymore, man. He's not him anymore.
Okay, so obviously, Linval Joseph is not, who he was or anything like that. I think what this does, though, is it helps allow them to move Javon Hargrave around. I think that's actually going to be the bigger benefit to that, because Milton Williams, who is a really phenomenal pass rusher, is just not a run defender. Period. Yeah, and so I think that's going to play some role. But yeah, to me, I think I don't know how much of this is like kind of motivated by how much people have like bought into Jeff Saturday, but it's one thing to be a new head coach coaching against the Raiders. I think it's another thing to be, taking on this like really complex Eagles offense. I am still worried about kind of what the Jeff Saturday leadership kind of situation is going to mean for the Colts. So yeah, I mean, and okay, against the Raiders, the Colts offensive line actually looked all right, especially running the ball. I don't trust that at all. There's no way Jeff Saturday individually coached all 5 of those offensive linemen.
Yes, and the Raiders have one defensive line.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's no way I'm trusting that.
And the passing game plan was so rudimentary. It was basically Matt Ryan run out there, run the little shallow cross slant a couple of times, and Paris Campbell winds up getting 30 yards a pop at it because nobody in the secondary can tackle. This was not like a real, oh, wow, we put innovations into this game plan situation.
Right. Yeah, so, I expect like Darius Slay and CJ Gardner-Johnson to do a pretty decent job clamping down on what can be done in the confines of this like really limited Colts offense. And I know that they're going to run the ball a lot. I know that that's kind of what they want to do, especially with Saturday there. And I know that's something that they feel like they can be good at with Jonathan Taylor. But I don't think that that's going to be enough to keep up with the Eagles offensively, who, when they run the ball, are gaining expected points. Right?
And also, yeah, Colts defense, by the way, is 29th against wide receiver ones and 30th in allowing yards after the catch. And what do the Eagles have? A wide receiver one who gets tons of yards after the catch. So good luck stopping A.J. Brown, Indianapolis.
Although the Eagles will be without Dallas Goedert, which has been a big part of their yak game as well.
That's true. Yeah. They are without Goedert this week.
Yeah.
For the next 4 weeks, in fact.
Next 4 weeks at least. So we're waiting on Tyree Jackson, the former quarterback of University of Buffalo, to come back and play tight end because he looked good in training camp practices a few weeks ago. He did a few years ago, I should say.
Right.
He did look good, by the way, in those practices, but that's a bit of a stretch.
I saw a thing that the replacement for Goddard is probably Calcaterra rather than Jack Stoll.
Yeah, it will be Calcaterra.
That makes sense.
So I would go with the Eagles minus 6.5 here. I'll take the Eagles and give the Colts the points.
I'll lay the points too.
Yeah, I'm taking the Eagles minus 6.
Another important 1 p.m. game, for one of the teams at least, is the Lions at the Giants. I know you're like, oh, God, but here's the funny thing. By DVOA, these teams are basically equivalent.
Yeah. They're right next to each other.
The offenses are 13th and 15th.
Mm-hmm.
The defenses are 26th and 24th. The special teams are 19th and 16th.
And they're both teams that can kind of run the ball pretty well.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like their calling card.
by record, and the passing games have been better than you expect this year based on those quarterbacks. You don't expect Goff and Jones to be doing as well as they are, but they are, and the defenses are bad, and there should be lots of points in this game. I like going over. It's 45.5.
Okay.
Here's some interesting splits. The Giants are dead last against passes in the middle.
Right.
And Goff is third in the league on passes in the middle of the field.
Really? But how much of that was when Hawkinson was there? I wonder.
That's the problem. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because when I see them, there's a lot of external passing and there's a lot of setup screen.
But a lot of that is Amon-Ra St. Brown too.
Okay. Well, I mean, he can exploit the middle of that field. This is like the game where Dan Campbell's 1-2 straight. If there's anything to this guy that's substantial besides
he should win this.
He should win this one. This is a team that you have actually probably have more talent than the other team. This is the team that's kind of had your lunch all year because we changed the culture and now we're winning even though we have nobody. Win this game for me, Dan Campbell, and let's see what you got.
Yeah, I think from a matchup perspective, I think a lot of things end up favoring the Lions. Like obviously, all of that goes away when you think that, hey, Daniel Jones has played pretty well the past couple of weeks. He's a better quarterback than Jared Goff, probably. Right? I mean, yeah, you want to put an asterisk on that, maybe, right?
Yeah.
But all of the other individual matchups, I think, favor the Lions. Like I think certainly in the trenches outside of Andrew Thomas, that's something where you think that the Lions are probably gaining a pretty big advantage. I think that the Giants have one receiver and the Lions have one cornerback. I think that's good. I think that's good for the Lions. I think that they're probably fine in that situation. And when you've got like an offense that like runs through your 8 tight ends, I mean, there's just a cap to what you can do. There's just so much. I mean, like I know that that both teams want to run the ball a lot. Which is going to make for some pretty good football for a certain type of football fan, and it's going to be tough to watch otherwise. But Saquon Barkley is fun to watch. But I think that the Lions, if they're a bad defense, no matter what, but I think if there's one area that you'd kind of rather have the Lions, it would be taking the Lions running offense against somebody else's running offense, going against that Lions running defense. I mean, they've built themselves to try and find ways to stop that run. Again, not a great run defense, but I think that the way that the Lions have found ways to be explosive in the run has allowed them to be able to keep pace with any team that tries to keep pace with them in the running game. So I do like the Lions here. It's a difficult sentence to put out there, but I do like the Lions
+3, so you're getting 3 points if you pick the Lions.
Yeah, and I mean, I already put down on Lions +3 where I could. So this is an area where I don't want to get burned by the fact that there is probably a difference in quality at quarterback and coach, which are some pretty important differences to have. But I think that matchup by matchup, I think the Lions are actually in a really good spot.
Matchup by matchup, I agree. I worry about the coaching situation. I'm not quite sure about Daniel Jones versus Jared Goff, and I don't want to think about it. Do have a prop though from DraftKings. Here's a prop: Saquon Barkley, 100+ rushing yards and 1 or more rushing touchdown, +180.
+180.
+180 for that.
Yeah,
100 yards and touchdown.
Like that.
Yeah. Right. No, Amon-Ra St. Brown or somebody like that doesn't have to do anything. I had a problem last week because I had Bernard Pierce on the other side of one of those, and they stopped him at like 94 yards. Just Saquon. Just Saquon. Yeah. Oh no. I was displeased.
It's tilting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just Saquon. I like that one at +180.
All right, I'm going to skip forward and let's just do the last game of Sunday and talk about the Chiefs and the Chargers.
I got to see what we just skipped. Go on.
We skipped the Steelers and Bengals.
Oh, thank God.
Fine.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Joe Burrow is good and TJ Watt is back, and so that's interesting, and it's a division game, and so that's interesting. But the Chiefs and Chargers is the game that's going national at 8:00. That's what everybody's going to watch. Big difference in DVOA here. Kansas City 5, Chargers 24. Before the season, I actually liked the Chargers to win the division, and then everybody got hurt except for Justin Herbert. The Chiefs are dead last against wide receiver ones. I don't know. Who's the wide receiver one for the Chargers? Is Keenan Allen going to play? Is Mike Williams going to play? Is it Palmer? Like, I mean, that's not meaningless. It's like a meaningless stat given the way that the Chargers are right now.
Right.
Interesting. I wrote down the Chargers are 12th against the pass, but 29th against the run. but the Chiefs are second passing and 20th running, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire is basically dead.
But does anyone? I actually say, does anyone miss him?
Right.
So I wonder, will the Chiefs like try to run with Pacheco and McKinnon, or are they just going to be like, look, it doesn't matter what your pass defense is. We have Patrick Mahomes. We're just going to pass.
I feel like they are going to, like, not balanced, but Andy Reid balanced, which means they are going to run somewhat. And they've had a history of being comfortable with McKinnon. South Jersey's own Pacheco, they've been relying on him quite a bit as well. So I think they're going to play their game. I just, watching the Chargers lately, I have no concept of how they're going to score enough points to make this even remotely interesting.
Yeah, I'm so disappointed in them. And that offense is just, I realize part of it is because of the receivers and who they have left, but it seems like such a misuse of Justin Herbert's talents. So much short stuff and not deep stuff. I realize the deep receiver is DeAndre Carter, but still, like,
that's rough. That's rough.
Your deep receiver's a knock-around kick return guy.
Yeah,
Your possession guys, okay, Palmer's a decent player, but that should be your number 3 in an ideal world. The tight ends, I'm not a Gerald Everett fan in general. We just don't see much of them, and everything they try to do is a trips screen concept of some kind offensively, because they've got 3 rookies on the offensive line now, 2 rookies in the
practice squad. I don't know if the practice squad kid is a rookie or a second or a third year, but although again, the rookie playing left tackle is actually having a really good season.
He is Sailor. The thing is, part of what they're doing is protecting these linemen with all that screen action. By the way, I did just check a quick injury report for the receiving core of the Kansas City Chiefs. Juju Smith did not practice concussion protocol. Mecole did not practice abdomen. MVS is back after illness, so I don't know what the situation is there. We'll see Kadarius Toney, I think.
It almost doesn't matter what the situation is there, because they just find a way to use whoever they have available, and they just keep on adding whoever is available, right?
And much more than the Chargers. I believe in MVS and Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore more than I believe in Palmer and DeAndre Carter and Jason Moore.
The state of affairs to put Sky Moore on a list of receivers that you trust more. That's just rough for the Chargers.
Jason, Michael Bandy and Jason Moore, if Keenan Allen and Mike Williams still can't play, that's their 3 and 4. Do you know who those people are? No, you don't. Nobody.
It's rough. That's a bad place to be. And the Chargers historically have gotten a bunch out of random wide receiver 5s that turn into guys that earn a second contract. But I think we're probably nearing the end of that.
Yes, Justin Watson, Bill Houston points out. Justin Watson, I did not mention for the Chiefs, and he is the guy who got a lot of snaps when Juju got hurt last week.
A lot of distrust of Sky Moore.
Remember the preseason when people thought Sky Moore was going to be a really big deal?
He looked great coming out of school. I liked him. I think Derek liked him a lot. But you're coming out of the MAC, and you're coming into the situation. And I think people were I think the fantasy community was like, oh, there's got to be a wide receiver 1, Sky Moore. Let's go with that guy, because there wasn't a lot coming out of Kansas City to suggest, oh yeah, he's really taking on this role.
I'll point out, by the way, the same thing I pointed out last time the Chiefs and Chargers played. I realized that we have this history of Derwin James kind of shutting down Travis Kelce, sort of. But the Chargers for the season are not good against tight ends. So unless they do that,
right,
Kelce's going to have a day. If they try to cover him in any other way other than Derwin James is going to shut you down, the rest of that defense cannot cover him.
Yeah. It's always really tough when you've got these really small samples of X player is really good against Y player. And because sometimes there is something to it, right? Sometimes there's this pass rusher just has this offensive tackle. That's just it, right? But it is tough to figure out how much of that is noise and how much of that is a genuine just kind of a matchup problem. And I think in this situation, when you've got such 2 highly talented players, but one gets the benefit of one of the best offensive designers in football and the best quarterback in football, right, I kind of want to just say that that's more likely noise in the fact that in previous matchups there were just other people to throw the ball to. Right. It's well, I don't need to test Derwin James. I've got J.C. Jackson against Tyreek Hill or whatever. I guess not that specific one, but
J.C. Jackson against Juju Smith-Schuster, I guess, in the first.
Right, and it's like, well, okay, I'll just do that. Why would I even take this risk, right?
Right.
And so when it comes to the situation where that matchup out of necessity becomes tested, then I think that that's when maybe those samples will matter. But until we get to that point, we're not getting a ton. So I would, I think that the Chiefs are happy to try and test that out and see what happens there. Because they can use Travis Kelce in so many different ways. It's really difficult for even the most versatile safety in the NFL, like Derwin James, to be able to kind of keep up with all of those things. So that one doesn't bother me that much, and especially given their history against tight ends.
If you like that, Travis Kelce, 100 plus receiving yards, and my neighbor Isaiah Pacheco with 1+ rushing touchdown, plus 330. So 100 plus receiving yards for Kelce, which is a pretty high ask there, and a rushing touchdown for Pacheco, plus 330 though.
I don't think the rushing touchdown for Pacheco is likely enough to make that worthwhile.
Okay.
I understand that. I like Pacheco a lot, but that one, it's tough, right? To figure out where the rushing touchdowns for the Chiefs come from.
On a team where they were going to run the T formation and all this other stuff at the
right.
goal.
Yeah.
So,
Useful Title points out that Sky Moore had a cool name, so people wanted him to be good. This is known as Barkevius Mingo syndrome.
oh my God, Barkevius.
We wanted so much for Barkevius Mingo to be good.
Yes.
So that we could just say Barkevius Mingo over and over again.
This is why the 49ers underrated Jeff Wilson.
Yes.
oh my God.
All right. Mike, you have one more play of the week about a game we didn't cover before we wrap up.
Yes, I am struggling. I'm at minus 300. Thank you, Buffalo Bills. You keep handing me losses along the way, and I don't know what to say about that except that stinks. Very simple play this week. Chicago Bears money line plus 135. Okay, we didn't get to talk about Justin Fields. I'm sure it's like Justin Fields week around the world here. I just think that from like pure talent standpoint, that's going to be enough to overtake a Falcons team that is crashing back to earth. Now, I know I'm disobeying my don't bet on a Falcons game rule, but we're going to do it. It's desperate time. I'm minus 300 right now. It's desperate times. Justin Fields, straight money line, Chicago Bears plus 135.
So you heard we like the Lions this week. We like the Eagles. We like the Cowboys. We like Bears money line plus 135. That's Mike's play of the week. All right, folks. Thank you so much for watching and listening to the show. Thank you to Arif Hasan for joining us again. Pro Football Network is where you can find Arif's work now. So go check that out. And also he's on Twitter. It's just at Arif Hasan, right?
At Arif Hasan NFL.
At Arif Hasan NFL on Twitter. Thank you, Mike, as always. So, tomorrow the Takes show at 1 p.m. with Kale and Jackson. And then next week we will have shows on Monday and Tuesday, but no shows Wednesday through Friday. So this show will not be here next week so that we can have many turkeys.
Between the three of us, we have an average amount of turkeys.
Yes. All right. So nothing live. Nothing. There'll be a video next Friday, but I don't think there'll be anything live next Friday, and nothing live next Wednesday and Thursday. All right, folks. Everybody enjoy Green Bay, Tennessee tonight. Enjoy the weekend, and we will talk to you not next week. Although Mike will be Monday next week, and
you'll find me Monday. You also find me tonight at the Discord.
FO Discord. Come talk to us on the FO Discord during the game below. Yeah. And for people asking for fantasy advice, the FO Discord Fantasy Channel is the place to go for fantasy advice. So check out the Discord linked below us on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching and listening.